Hello, guys. Excited to be back here. I hope I don't get in trouble for this one. Let's do this. A while ago, I made a video about hookup culture, its harmful effects, in my own personal opinions. And at some point in the video, I sort of talked about living together before marriage. And I might have said a comment that implied that I don't agree with the practice. I don't remember exactly the comment, but I do remember that someone in the comments said that they believe it is absolutely necessary as a way to test the relationship. And I disagree with this man. Now, I said I would make a video about it. Now, it took me months, so sorry about that, but I made it, so here we are. Not sure why it took me so long, but whatever, I'm making it now. Before I even get into things, guys, I want to say, do the thing that I'm not trying to shame people for living together before marriage. I know people from across the political spectrum do it. In fact, most people do it before marriage. I didn't even know this. I have a friend who I met up with a few weeks ago for lunch. And after I went on a whole little rant about why I don't agree with living together before marriage, she shared with me that she lives with her boyfriend. But she didn't feel mad at me because the way I framed what I thought was not in an angry way. So hopefully I managed to do it again here. But again, this is the internet, so it's a little bit harder to do. How people receive it, very hard to manage. I'll try my best. I also have some friends who have lived together before marriage who recently got engaged, and good for them. And some people on my fiancé's side of the family. I know it happens. The conversation is nuanced. It is not black and white. This is not going to be a religious take nor a moral take, although those things are necessary, of course, and important, but that's not what this video is. So before I made the video, I had my ideas on cohabitation. Before I did any research, I viewed the issue very pragmatically, I would say. I detached all romance from it. My dad is a very pragmatic person, and I think I take a lot of my traits from him. When he proposed to my mom, he actually did it in a very unorthodox way. I found out recently. He was like, hey, I think we should get married. And yeah, he gave her like a golden cross, not a ring. So I didn't know this until recently. But yeah, my dad was kind of tired of doing the whole boyfriend thing. He in many ways was the guy that a lot of women were interested in. And also a very easy-going guy, the type that goes with the flow. He enjoyed his bachelor life, so for him, it was definitely a little difficult to mentally give that up. Even though he had been in a relationship for a while, it was difficult for him to mentally make that full commitment. However, my dad has said many times in his decades after marriage that sometimes he wishes that he had married younger, and that this time of his life has been the best. That sometimes, because he has loved his life after marriage, he has loved having kids, and especially the having kids part, he thinks it would have been better to do when he was younger. He's told this to young guys that are thinking of getting married in their 30s, like, I got married in my 30s and I felt a little old for the kids. But so that's a little message to those guys. I think it's fine to do it forever in your 70s. Sure, but you're just not going to enjoy your time with your children. But you do you. You do you, boo. He has definitely made it clear to us that he really values what he has now. When he first took the leap, in big part, it was because he was tired of having to go pick my mom up at her parents' place. Yes, this is like old school traditional. Everyone lived with their parents then. He was tired of not vacationing with them or with her. He was tired of living apart. So I think if it hadn't been for those things, I think it would have taken my dad a lot longer to get over his mental hurdle. And maybe he would have waited another 5 years, another 10 years. And then what? So I personally see living together as a great way to delay an actual marriage. If you are living together with no plans to marry and no plans to get engaged within a specific time frame, then why would the man especially want to rush into marriage? You already have the married life without the paperwork, without the commitment, and for those who value the church, without the commitment made before God. Now, there are some guys, and this is, I think, a rare exception, that do really see the romance of marriage as something important, and then those guys will take the leap regardless. But I think that's a little bit of the exception. So I went through a lot of studies on this, guys. I went through a lot of studies and articles on the topic, and I was surprised to find out that 70% of married couples today live together before marriage. You know, I'm definitely in the minority here, and me and my fiance are definitely doing things in the minority, but we're gonna manage. And that 65% of Americans believe that living together before marriage will actually improve your chances of a stable marriage. Now, I found these studies really fascinating because, one, that there's so many married couples that live together before marriage, and two, that so many people think it's going to make a marriage more stable, because there has been decades of research pointing to the opposite. So I looked at a few studies and articles on this, and I will link everything below. One report by the Institute for Family Studies said, quote, "Although many believe that living together before marriage will lower their odds of divorce, there is no evidence that this is generally true, and a lot of evidence that it is not true." Another study reported by the Washington Examiner concluded that couples that lived together before marriage were 48% more likely to divorce than couples who moved in together after being engaged or married. And those numbers should not be ignored. There's one study I looked at that basically said that couples who were living together before marriage were more likely to survive the first year of marriage. And I'm sure a lot of people would applaud that study. But then the odds flipped after the first year. I found this all very fascinating, especially some findings by a PubMed article, which said that findings suggested that men who cohabited with their spouse before engagement were less dedicated than men who cohabited only after engagement and not at all before marriage. Furthermore, these husbands were less dedicated to their wives than their wives were to them. That was all so interesting. It was making my brain fire up. But then I thought, why? Why is that? Why do couples who cohabit have more chances of having their marriages end? So the researchers from a recent study suggested that it really depends on the intention of the couple when first moving in together. So, has this couple settled the marriage question? Have they agreed that they will get married? Have they decided on the big things in life and that they will in fact get married, and when? Or is this a couple moving in together without having settled any of these things and just moving in together for convenience? Because convenience might be the thing that naturally carries you over to a marriage and not commitment. And those are quite different things, especially if we're talking about the longevity of a marriage. So the Washington Examiner suggested from a study they're reporting on that, quote, the experience of cohabitation can change one's perceptions about marriage and divorce, making those involved have more negative views about marriage and be more comfortable with the idea of divorce. I'm going to read that again. The experience of cohabitation can change one's perception about marriage and divorce, making those involved have more negative views about marriage and be more comfortable with the idea of divorce. That I found quite illuminating. And also that apparently the more times you cohabitate with different partners, the more likely you are to divorce. Now, am I saying divorce is inevitable for couples that do this? Obviously not. But, it's just something to keep in mind, especially if the belief is like the complete opposite of what is actually happening in reality. So according to one of the researchers, they said it might be because people that have gone through the process of a breakup or many breakups, especially the ones that involve moving out and breaking your lease, get more comfortable with a breakup itself. So I'll read the quote of the study. More cohabitation experience will often also mean more experience with relationships ending, which can lower barriers to divorce. It goes on, although no one wants to see a marriage that is dangerous or damaging continue, many couples in marriage struggle at some point. And having a sense that one can easily move on can also mean moving towards the door too quickly in a marriage that might have succeeded with more effort. And that made me think about the rate of divorce, which, by the way, is not 50%. I kind of talked about this on a different video. But it's still higher than we would like it to be, correct? So it made me think of that and wondered if this is helping the divorce rate stay high. So the researchers of one study, Rhodes and Stanley, asked survey respondents who cohabited prior to marriage to one of the following descriptions as to why they started living together. One was, we didn't think about it or plan it, we slid into it, then we talked about it, but then it just sort of happened, and then we talked about it, planned it, and then made a decision together to do it. Apparently, according to Rhodes and Stanley, most people chose options 1 or 2, which Rhodes and Stanley coded as having, quote unquote, slid into living together, while they coded option 3 as deciding to live together. And so they found that those who slid into living together were 13 percentage points more likely to divorce compared to those who had talked about it and decided beforehand. And remember, they're saying most people chose the options of sliding or slid into living together. Most people are doing this casually and then ending up in a marriage. So draw some conclusions from that. Also, these researchers said they found that those who listed, quote unquote, made sense financially and, quote unquote, test the relationship, what the commenter said in my video, those who listed those as their top reasons were more likely to get divorced than those who reported moving in to spend more time together. Now, there's another aspect about all of this. There are gender differences in motivations to move in together. Surprise, surprise. So men were more likely to cite testing the relationship than women in a survey which conducted 120 cohabiting couples. In another study, which was conducted specifically about the gender differences, women were more likely to cite love and spending time together, and men were more likely to cite availability to SEX. This shouldn't be shocking. So, okay, we get past the studies part. From what I could conclude from reading all of this is that couples that live together for other reasons that do not include a plan of getting married are more likely to stay in a relationship which would not have lasted anyway. When you move in with someone because it just sort of happened, you might end up in a relationship for years, which might have otherwise lasted only a few months. Because the inertia associated with breaking the lease, moving out, etc. My personal thoughts, when me and my fiance first started dating, he asked me if I had ever lived with a boyfriend before. And I said no, and that I was not planning to. My view, without looking at all these studies, is that my parents had done it. My grandparents had done it. All my uncles and aunts had done it. And they all had successful marriages. No one in my family had needed to cohabit before marriage, And therefore, my conclusion, I didn't need to either. I know couples today, and I ask them, hey, how does it feel to be married? And their answer usually is, nothing has changed. Because literally nothing has. Like, their daily lives are the same. And that's cool if that works for you. But I personally wanted something different. I know it will be challenging, but I'm excited for it. And I know the people that aren't doing this are in the minority, but why is this a bad thing? Is the majority always correct? I think we have seen throughout history that that is not always the case. Again, there will be plenty of people that lived together before marriage and that they now have a successful marriage. I know I will see those comments, or I hope I don't, guys. I hope you understand the message that I'm trying to get across. I don't deny those couples exist, but all the data shows that doing so does not mean that you have more and better chances of a stable marriage. In fact, I would be suspicious if my boyfriend of 1 year or 2 years came to me and was like, hey Ellie, I think that one day I would like to marry you, but I'm not sure yet. I just need to live with you first and see how you are, like on the daily. And then, like, by observing you for a year, I will decide if I want to marry you. I think that would make me feel really uncomfortable. And the whole thing would feel really icky to me. And how I think Alex Clark made a video on this as well. And she said that when you move in with someone without marrying them, you are showing them that you are willing to live with them and have basically a marriage relationship without actual commitment. So if my significant other were to come to me and say that, I would feel really uncomfortable. And I know some people will say, I would never say that. I'll just keep it to myself. But wouldn't that mean you're keeping your motivations hidden from your boyfriend or your girlfriend? I don't think that's very healthy, but yeah. And that's very different than someone that is showing me that they're willing to take a plunge with me and that we're both willing to take this chance with each other. And honestly, I think, this is my personal opinion, and we've seen it time and time again with couples that have been successful without living together. There are other ways, I think, where you can see the kind of person your partner might be on the daily. How they treat others, how they treat your family, how they treat their family, how they behave in their own home, how they behave in their parents' home, on a road trip, on a restaurant, during disagreements. The thing is, many people ignore those red flags in favor of the thrill of the moment. But there's a reason. Age-old wisdom usually wins out. Now, guys, I hope I managed to phrase that in a digestible way and that people don't feel attacked, but there's only so much a girl can do. So I'll see you next time.